everyone, this is 1 year on. I'm Alison, and following on from episode 26, today's episode is about navigating and driving post-stroke during my time away overseas. I tackled how I got back to driving in episode 17 and the complexities of that. I wanted to make an episode about driving overseas and in a place that I hadn't been in for a while. So for background, I'd returned to driving post-stroke over a year ago, and over a year before I went overseas. However, I hadn't been to Scotland for over 7 years, and indeed my parents moved 10 years ago to the complete opposite side of town, which I was completely unfamiliar with. So in the end, me going back was not to a familiar location, and hadn't been there for about 7 years either. I'm a competent driver. I don't get scared in traffic. I don't usually get lost either. I navigate well and easily, and I love driving my manual car. That's my baseline. In Australia, I drive a very small car, a powerful one, but small nonetheless. I've no need for a larger car or an SUV. My nippy little car suits me just fine. The roads are not that busy compared to a big city, with the main roads being 2 lanes each way, and there only being a few which are 3 lanes wide. We've under 400,000 population here, and where I was going in Scotland, it would be high tourist season and there would be 1.7 million people in the city. When I organised the hire car, I was very aware I would have my 2 kids, who are tall teenagers, and my 2 nieces in the car regularly, so I knew it would have to be comfortable for 5 people. Arriving at the car hire place, they proudly told me they'd upgraded me. I wasn't really very happy about this. Firstly, because a bigger car would mean more petrol. Petrol's really expensive in the UK compared to Australia. A larger car and all that goes with it. Oh, it has sat-nav, they told me. Great, I thought. No, it wasn't great. The roads in Glasgow, where we were incredibly complex. An entire maze of motorways, a spaghetti junction if you will, which the sat-nav was unable to navigate me through. Those roads were a lot more complicated than the ones I drive on every day in my city in Australia. I spent a lot of time as a result doing about turns and getting back and forth. I was fortunate that it was high summer, and there were very few times where I was driving in the dark, unlike in winter when I was there before. I've never liked driving in the dark. Too many things you can't see. Distance presents itself differently to you. I ended up getting my elder child to use Google Maps and navigate for me on unfamiliar roads to her. So firstly, I had unfamiliar roads to navigate around. Secondly, the volume of traffic was so much higher. 5-lane motorways is just something I'm not used to. I hadn't been on anything that big for easily 7.5 years the last time that I was there. So that was quite overwhelming. I noticed the drivers were speeding a lot more than they do in Australia, which did surprise me, so I can only conclude that the drivers in Scotland have gotten worse in the last decade. I also was travelling to places that I'd never been before, certainly not by car. I thankfully chose to take the train to Edinburgh, which saved the debacle of finding parking amidst the traffic. Perth was another matter, and the place we wanted to go to didn't show up in the map. Or in sat-nav, I was going round and round in circles. Google Maps is sending me to a pedestrian area, and there were no multi-storey car parks. That just isn't a thing there. It's a wonder anyone finds that museum, and they certainly don't make it easy for tourists, as there was no signage. We ended up having to phone the museum and get one of the staff in there to direct us. Ridiculous for a museum that has been newly built and £27 million spent on it. More of the trips were more local, and I had the opportunity to use public transport, which meant, again, no searching for non-existent parking spaces. I drove to an underground, unfamiliar train station and parked there. So much of this trip was unfamiliar and peculiar. The roads, even the shopping centres, where everything was in space. The previous time I had been to Scotland was in winter, so there was less daylight hours and more darkness. That time I hired a tiny Fiat 500 and scooted all over the place. This time it was driving further afield, to a train station far enough away from Edinburgh, but close enough to make it worth my while, at Croy, Falkirk, Stirling, Perth, Inverness, Paisley, Troon, Glasgow City itself. So many motorways. When I lived in Glasgow, we often didn't go in the motorway system as we lived on the north side. It was mostly suburban roads and main roads. But where my parents live now, on the south side of the city, the main roads there are the motorways. The M8 is undergoing significant roadworks. We got stuck twice in a 5-lane shrinking to 2-lane road in rush hour traffic. Once I was able to get my daughter to navigate us around that, going completely out of our way but not being stuck. This was something I hadn't expected, stupidly of course. I hadn't considered how much energy it would take out of me. I thought, driving at home in Australia is easy now, it will be the same overseas. How wrong I was. I had a car that had driver assist. All the bells and whistles, binging and bonging, steering correct. Oh my goodness, which was annoying to be honest, but supposedly a safety feature. Just because you're competent in one place doesn't mean you will be competent in another place. The only advice I have to anyone is to think about where you want to go and how the roads are compared to where you live. Consider the size of the city and its complexity. Is it a planned or a naturally evolved city? I didn't, stupidly, and then wondered why it was really hard getting about. Plan your trips in advance. Shorter journeys interspersed with longer ones. And don't expect that the sat-nav in the car will be able to direct you well. Thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode, please like, share, subscribe and leave a comment. I will be back next time to talk about my recent time away and the things that surprised me.